Are you ready to have a conversation about who the Florida Gators might look to hire as their next head coach?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free breakfast in the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, Billy Napier has not been fired to this point. Also, we will talk about Mississippi State tomorrow. I wanted to talk about this today because yesterday, it was weird. So yesterday, a bunch of people just started talking about Florida Gators head coaching potential vacancy, or expected vacancy is what we can call it at this point, because Florida will likely fire Billy Napier at some point this season or after the season, which we know where I stand on it, right? Like, we know that I'm okay. Wipe your hands. You're done with it. The report of they're putting together the buyout money, I'll believe it when I see it, man. But until then, I'm chilling. But everybody is expecting Florida to fire Billy Napier this season. And now everybody is talking about who the Gators might hire next. I will say this. A report came out yesterday that Jon Gruden was interested in getting into coaching, or getting back into coaching, and that Jon Gruden was looking to get into college coaching specifically. And I cannot stress this enough. Jon Gruden should never coach a down of football for as long as he lives. Okay? He is a terrible person. And whether you are talking about someone that is on Florida's coaching staff or not, whether you are talking about someone that is interested in coaching anywhere, if you are a racist, you do not deserve to ever be in charge of anybody, be a leader of men in any way, shape, or form. And Jon Gruden is a racist. We've seen the emails. It's why he got fired. One of the reasons he got fired with a 10-year contract with the Raiders. Got fired after those emails surfaced, which emails came out for a lot of people. It was that the Commanders owner at the time, Dan Snyder, pretty sure that was his name, that the emails came out, and that was part of the probe. And Jon Gruden, yes, was also part of that as well. And so Jon Gruden, please never make the suggestion of him. He does not deserve to coach anybody ever again. Okay, cool. Other reports came out of the Florida Gators boosters will be more involved in this coaching hire, whenever it may begin, and that the boosters will be looking for a proven Power 4 winner. Please, I will say that. You look at the recent coaching hires, and Dan Mullen was, as far as going Power 4, offensive-minded, has the Florida ties. Like, Dan Mullen, in theory, wasn't a bad hire. He gave up on the team, and that's when things went downhill. Billy Napier, group of 5. Winner, recruiter, sure, but group of 5. Jim McElwain, group of 5. Okay. Will Muschamp wasn't head coach prior. Things like that. And so now the expectation is that the criteria will be proven Power 4 winner, recruiting, offensive-minded. Those are the 3 key traits that we're looking for there. And the name that always comes up is Lane Kiffin, right? That's the guy that everybody is connecting. Florida Gators, new head coach, Lane Kiffin. Fair. We know that I've been skeptical of Lane Kiffin. We know that I've been critical of Lane Kiffin throughout his career. That's fine. We will talk more on Lane later. I agree with the thought process of a proven Power 4 winner. My issue there, which again, we'll talk about all these for a while, something tells me. But my issue there is that I think that leaves you with a very small coaching pool of proven Power 4 winner, offensive-minded, recruiting, and I'm going to add another caveat to it. Right here, affordable. Okay? Guys like, well, you know what? We'll talk about them in a few minutes. How about that? We'll talk about that in a few minutes, the affordable part of it, because that, for me, is a big hang-up. But I do think that the Florida Gators upper administration, Scott Strickland, whoever it may be that makes this call, needs to make this call sooner rather than later for not just the short-term health of the program, but the long-term health of the program. Because this year, especially in an ever-changing college football landscape right now, this year is also important because now, early signing day, all the way up at December 4th. So when we talk about, Dan Mullen gets fired at the end of the Missouri game, I believe it was. I believe that was the last straw for him. But around then. But, you have a mid-November firing. You have a month before early signing day happens. So, you make a hire in a week or two, and then you get 3 weeks to really hammer home early signing day and make some progress there. You don't get to do that anymore if you're planning on making a hire at the end of the season. It's weird. It really puts teams, I think, at a disadvantage. I think it moves back expectations for success at that point just a little bit when we talk about, well, now you don't really get that transition class too much. Bump class puts a lot more weight on it, but transition class really probably going to fall apart quite a bit if you don't have an answer. And I don't need a public answer. But if you have, hey, you could tell this recruit, hey, we're going to hire this guy, then sure. But you can't really tell recruits that while you still have someone else as a head coach, right? At least I don't think you can. So you need to make your decision sooner rather than later, because now all you're doing is maybe embarrassing yourself a little bit more. I understand keeping Billy Napier there just to right the ship, keep it moving. He's the head coach experience, because the only other people that have head coach experience are what? Ron Roberts from Delta State and Dan Enos as an analyst. Pretty sure that's it there. So, not great, right? Florida needs to make a decision sooner rather than later. But again, everybody is already talking about it as if this job's vacant, as if it's open, as if this coaching search has began. Which, if you're like me, you've been looking at candidates for quite some time now about who it can be. We've got some names. We're going to talk about 3 specific names in the next segment, and we'll talk about some others as well after that. But 3 specific names, 3 big names, the 3 L's, so you probably know who we're talking about there, next on Locked On Gators. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Well, it was something a little different for you today. Now through September 22nd, this Sunday, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Visit FanDuel.com and download America's number one sportsbook. Hey, Gators fans, have you heard about Roy? If you're an everydayer, you've heard about Roy, because we've talked about Roy quite a bit. It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. And as you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. NIL has changed the game for programs. NIL does matter, and Roy changes the game for NIL fans. When fans contribute to a successful campaign, they receive access to exclusive content from the athlete, such as their announcement decision, behind-the-scenes footage, and other personal reflections, all of which are available only to the fans who supported the athlete. It's exclusive to you. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Use referral code LOCKEDON for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash in a sweepstakes. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Support the players, change the game with Roy. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free right in the podcast and on YouTube. And we're talking about the 3 L's for this Florida Gators coaching hire. We will talk about all of these names more in depth, pros, cons, all those possibilities. We will get into it when an actual move is made regarding Billy Napier's future, or when an actual announcement is made regarding Billy Napier's future. But again, with all the reports that came out yesterday, I felt like this was a good time to have that conversation for the first time on this show. If you've been in Twitter Spaces, you've heard me talk about a lot of things. We've talked about all these coaches and then some. We've gone through a lot of names. We've gone through lists and lists of tiers of coaches. We've gone through a lot. We will be doing a lot whenever this coaching move is made and is announced. But starting with the 3 L's, Lane Kiffin's the first name that we're going to talk about, right? Because he is the one that everybody talks about. Everybody mentions whenever there's the possibility of a Florida Gators coaching hire or Florida Gators coaching search. People go, Lane Kiffin. Because it's a fact that throughout his career, Florida's been his white whale. And honestly, that's my biggest selling point for why I think you can land him. I understand Lane's been fickle before, right? He was supposed to leave for Auburn, and then contract details came out, and then got a little trigger shy there and ended up staying at Ole Miss. Fair. Or I think that's fair. But Lane is at a capped program right now. He is. It's a capped program. It's Ole Miss. I don't know if you can win a national championship at Ole Miss. And if Lane doesn't win a national championship this year, I think you get your answer. And Lane has his questions. Lane has the lowest buyout of the 3 L's that we're talking about. Lane's buyout, I believe, is $4.5 million this year, $3.1 million next year. So you can get him at a reasonable cost there. The salary is going to be really high, but buyout-wise, considering you have to pay Billy Napier's buyout, a buyout of Lane Kiffin, and the salary of, say, 12 to 15 million a year, which is a lot of money, right? But let's say it's 12 to 15. We'll say roughly 13 and a half to just cut it down the middle. That's what you're paying Lane. You're paying 18 million for Lane, and then the 19 to 26 million for Billy Napier, depending on when you fire him. It's a lot of money, but it's more affordable. Lane Kiffin, obviously, he meets the power four, proven power four coach. He meets the offensive minded coach. As far as recruiting, it's tough because when Lane was at USC, recruiting wasn't an issue. When Lane is at Ole Miss, it is an issue. But it's also Ole Miss, which has historically been a bad recruiting program. Ole Miss, or the state of Mississippi, is very good in terms of blue chip players per capita. We've talked about that a lot. We talked about that when Jamonta Waller was committed to Florida. We talked about that when KD Daniels committed to Florida. We've talked about it when is it Micah Jones? Is he the tight end for Mississippi? I believe he's the tight end for Mississippi that's committed to Florida right now. Yeah, because Tayshaun Gelsey's from Jacksonville. So Micah Jones from Mississippi, Gator. When we've talked about all those guys, we've brought up Mississippi State doesn't have a lot of talent, but they've got really good players. And so it's hard to convince guys, hey, come spend the next 3 to 4 years of your career at Ole Miss. It's one of the reasons that I think Lane's been pretty impactful with the portal. And I mean, you look at this year, again, we'll talk about in-depth things a lot. We'll talk about the defensive coaching hires. We'll talk about all that stuff. But recruiting in the state of Florida is different from recruiting in the state of Mississippi. And I think that that's one of the things where that's your question mark for Lane, in my opinion. I think that's your question mark. But as far as so many of the other concerns that have surrounded Lane for years about his maturity and how serious he takes this, I think the way that he's moved the past 18 months has kind of shown that he's taking a more mature approach to things. The way they've completely attacked the portal, the way he's gone directly at boosters going, hey, we need more money for these things. The Twitter stuff doesn't bother me. I know that a lot of people are like, I don't want my coach on Twitter. I don't care. Win football games. That's it. Win football games, and I really don't care that much. As long as you're not hurting people, I don't mind. So Lane's up there. He's affordable. He's an option, right? Second L, Lincoln Riley. And you know what? I'll throw the other L right in right now, Dan Lanning. Those are the guys we talk about a lot. Those are the 3 L's, the main L's that Florida Gators fans talk about. And here's my issue with both of them. I think that they are too expensive. And it's not even to say, oh, wow, broke program thing. It's not even about that. It's that, again, you're spending, depending on when you fire Billy, you're $19 to $26 million to buy out Billy. Then you've got to spend a buyout on them, which each of them should be roughly $60 million. At a later date, we will explain why Dan Lanning's buyout is so high compared to what his contractual buyout is. Lincoln Riley's, that's an estimate because he is at a private university, so they're not required to give that information at all. But they meet the Power Four. Dan Lanning does not meet the offensive-minded part. Lincoln Riley does. Which, by the way, Lincoln Riley is who people want to make Cliff Kingsbury sound like. Want to make that clear. Because I think it's an important talking point for the next few weeks, months. Just saying. Recruiting, Lincoln's done pretty well. Lanning's done pretty well. Like, Lanning's got kids from Florida going up to Oregon right now. Like, you can get kids from Florida to go commit to Oregon. And even if they don't sign there right now, the fact remains that you're getting kids committed. Again, getting them to stick is really hard, but you're getting them committed. And they're sticking at least long term. Whether or not that they're on signing day, we won't know. But right now he's got Zaire Addison, Dallas Wilson. Like, he's got blue chip players that Florida was pursuing heavily to commit to Oregon. Lincoln Riley had some, like Hilton Stubbs, committed, but that fell apart quickly. It's a tough situation, but those are guys where you look at them and you say, hey, everybody has questions, right? Dan Lanning is, can he really do it sustainably? He hasn't been a head coach for long. It's his third year at Oregon. Can he do it sustainably? We'll find out. Lincoln, has he finally figured out defense? We'll find out. But everybody has their question marks with those 3 L's. They should be at or near the top of your list. I will also say Urban Meyer's a name that was thrown around quite a bit. Urban Meyer's a name that I would take for a year or two and then figure out things down the line, but at least get things back in place. You could hire him as the interim and say, hey, you're going to be our guy for a year or two so that recruiting class shouldn't fall apart at all, because there's no question there, but Urban has said that ship sailed. So get rid of that one. But the 3 L's of Lane, Lincoln, and Lanning, all really good coaches, all guys that would be immediate improvements, I think, for the University of Florida. I think Lane Kiffin gives you the best chance of retaining some of the talent on the roster, because that's, of course, going to be a conversation of, well, when you fire Billy, portal opens for 30 days for guys. And so that's obviously going to throw a wrench in that plan. But there are some also overlooked, lesser known, less prestigious names that we'll talk about a few of them next on Locked On Gators. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'll tell you what, I've used Game Time frequently. I've talked about that a lot. I'm lucky that when I go to Florida games, I like to sit the same section, same area. I go usually section 16-ish. I'm looking front row. I always like being front row. Section 16-ish, front row. Go out there, have some fun with it, enjoy those. Concerts, a lot of them are general admission, so I don't have to sift through tickets, which is just beautiful. Chef's kiss. It's fantastic. The time consuming. I love Game Time. I think I've been very open about that, and I got a notification for an Aventura concert this December. Might do it for my birthday. Why not? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. I don't know if you can see it right to my side here. There we go. But Team Ticker is I feel like Vanna White. I'm just like, here we go. There it is. Team Ticker is a one-of-a-kind sports sign for college sports fans. Team Ticker is a 1.5 by a 2-foot wall sign featuring the Gator logo. If you look at Locked On Spartans, you will see Sparty on top of it. But here we have Albert saying cool retro-looking LED display. And it's updated daily, by the way, with fresh content. Countdown to the next game. Right now, they've got men's basketball popping up on the screen there. They've got women's soccer. They've got a bunch, 47 days, 36 minutes, and 15 seconds from the time of recording this. So you know when I'm recording it today. Whether it's football, men's or women's basketball, baseball, soccer, softball, Team Ticker has you covered with everything. Everything that you want. And if you're looking for that one just eye-catching item to showcase your team pride or a gift for that special Gators fan, go to teamticker.com and pick up your Team Ticker today. Team Ticker is the one-of-a-kind sports sign. Go to teamticker.com and use promo code LOCKEDON to receive $50 off your Team Ticker purchase. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. I'm done with my Vanna White spiel, so at least there's that. But when we talk about the Florida Gators, you're in a tough spot, right? Because I feel like when you're talking about proven Power 4 coaches that are offensive-minded and affordable, there's a really small list, right? There's a really small pool, especially when you go, oh, well, they've done it at the SEC level or in the Southeast. It's a really small pool, and it's kind of just Lane, right? Lincoln's never done it in the true Southeast. Oklahoma is not the Southeast, despite being the SEC. Cal's in the ACC. Conference realignment is just crazy. Also, yeah, so Dan Lanning, defensive-minded coach, so he doesn't hit that criteria. But that means that you open up the pool, right? You have to open up the pool of criteria. And I am telling you this now. This is not a list that I'm putting together. I've looked at the lists of candidates for the Florida Gators. I've looked at the list of who people want to be the head coach. I'm on Twitter a lot, man. Like, you look at the screen time, and I'm on Twitter a lot to look at just things like that. Just to look at that. We see the names of course, Lane. One name that's popped up a lot is Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, and I am begging you, please don't make it Eli Drinkwitz. I have not met many head coaches in my lifetime. Eli Drinkwitz is one of them. I do not like him. I do not want to have to root for him. Really good program last year in Missouri. They look good again this year, for the most part, at least. I understand that there were some people who were like, oh, but they had to, they were really tight with Boston College for a while. And so, yeah, well, Boston College was ranked when that game happened. Like, let's not act like Boston College this year is the Boston College you're used to. It's no longer Jeff Hafley calling it. It's Bill O'Brien, who is very successful at Penn State, who is an NFL head coach for a few years, like an NFL playoff head coach. It's not like he's a nobody. Jed Fish is a name that comes up a lot, offensive-minded coach. I don't think of him as a proven guy. Well, he was at Arizona for a couple of years, and that was good. He's at Washington now, and they're looking decent. Lost to Washington State's not great, but I don't look at Jedd Fisch as proven. And I don't honestly. I understand he's a Florida Gator alum. I don't look at him as someone that I want to be the head coach right now of Florida at all. I just don't. Alex Golesh is the guy where everybody talks about, oh, well, you remove the Power 4 thing, and he kind of fits everything you're looking for, right? Recruiting-wise, he's been generally good throughout his career. Offensive-minded coach that runs the veer and shoot, which could be killer with Florida athletes. Like you look at a lot of things, and it's like, all right, well, maybe there's a path. There's Jamie Chadwell comes up all the time, the Liberty head coach, who it's very funny because Jamie Chadwell's offensive coordinator is Willie Korn, and Willie Korn is someone that we've spoken about incessantly with the Florida Gators, and Billy Napier potentially hiring him as the offensive coordinator. Lance Leipold at Kansas is a name that keeps getting brought up. He was a program builder at Buffalo, program builder apparently at Kansas, figuring things out. He's made good hires at offensive coordinator throughout his career. Andy Kotelnicki was with him at Buffalo through Buffalo. Or actually, I believe, were they together? Andy Kotelnicki might have been with Lance Leipold at Wisconsin Whitewater, I think it was. And then Buffalo, they were together for, I think, 5 years. And then Kansas for the first 2 years of Lance Leipold's tenure. And then now Andy Kotelnicki is calling plays for Penn State this year. Speaking of Penn State, James Franklin is a name that comes up, a proven winner. He won at Vanderbilt, fairly certain. He's constantly got good defenses. He's got multiple assistant coaches with Florida ties on his roster. Phil Trotwain played for Florida. Juwan Siders from Florida, loves Florida. Andy Kotelnicki's his OC. If you bring him over with you, there's a million options. The issue is that I don't think any of them, without a doubt, fit every single thing that you're talking about. Because even Lane is, well, will you recruit properly at Florida? Because we saw that with Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen had Mississippi State cooking. They were exceeding expectations. They were winning games. It was fun to watch. They were doing everything. And then he came to Florida, and they did all that except recruit. I understand the hesitancy there. I will also say this. One big difference, Dan Mullen did not make tough calls at defensive coordinator. And Lane Kiffin went and hired Pete Golding, who, by the way, that's one of the reasons Princely left Florida and specifically chose Ole Miss to go to. And that defense has allowed 9 points in 3 games. I don't care who you're playing. 9 points in 3 games is really impressive. And if I'm not mistaken, all of them are field goals. It's a damn good team. This is going to be a wild coaching search. It is going to be a wild coaching search. It's going to be a lot of fun whenever it happens. Tomorrow, we will be talking about Mississippi State. So thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We're available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.